Hi folks, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So today I want to take a look at a paper which tries to improve how LLMs can generate code, but does so in a cool new way, and that is by actually using documentation to improve this code generation from LLMs. By now, we've seen that large language models, LLMs, are pretty good at generating code. The problem that the authors here are trying to solve is that these generated code snippets can only be synthesized out of what was in the LLM's training data. Most notably, if a given API version or some function or some library was not in the training set, then the LLM simply won't be able to synthesize code snippets that utilize those unseen libraries or API. And so how do you solve that short of having to periodically retrain your LLM so that it keeps up to date with new releases of libraries and so on? How do you solve that? That's the problem the authors here are looking at, and they call their approach DocPrompting. The key idea of DocPrompting, as the name would suggest, is breaking up the synthesis into two steps. Step one is a retrieval phase, where given your natural language prompt, you retrieve documentation related to that prompt from a corpus of documentation. And then you take that documentation, combine it with your natural language prompt, and pipe that to step two, which is the generator. And the generator is a much more traditional natural language prompt for an LLM. But all the stuff that you've retrieved, all this documentation that you've retrieved, goes into adding additional context to the prompt on top of the initial natural language request. And the claim is that this kind of documentation augmented code generation is going to solve the problem of generating code for new or unseen libraries, because the context that you're stuffing into the prompt will help the LLM generate code for all these new things. I did a video on this general pattern of retrieval over a corpus and then using that retrieval to generate summaries or answer questions over that corpus with an LLM in a previous video. I'll link that down in the description below. But that goes into a bit more detail on how this general paradigm of retrieval plus synthesis with LLMs work. And if you look at each of these phases, the first phase, which is retrieval or just search, is a pretty well understood problem, and you could use the standard kinds of search algorithms like the ones based on term frequencies, or you could actually do something more fancy and train some kind of retrieval function. And then once you have a retrieval pass, you construct a prompt and feed that to one of the many options that you have for LLMs, things like GPT or Codex or T5, and use that to synthesize your code snippet. The authors tried this out on two main corpora. One was for shell commands and another one was for Python. And in both of them, they saw pretty noticeable improvements with DocPrompting compared to just regular prompting. For example, for their shell command use case, as they're saying here, DocPrompting got more than twice the accuracy compared to regular prompting. And for Python, they also saw much better results with DocPrompting. What they're showing in this graph is for some Python problems, the pass at K metric. What that metric measures is how many attempts or how many generations does it take to pass all the given unit tests for a given problem. And here you can see that the red line, which is DocPrompting, has a much better pass at K. Now, beyond just giving the LLM context on things that it has not seen in its training data, the authors are trying to hypothesize about why does adding documentation to the prompt improve the suggestions. And what they're saying is that including this documentation gives the LLM a mapping between the natural language intent and code, because the documentation has both prose, natural language descriptions, as well as function signatures and usage examples. And all that is really rich context, and that shows up in the improved quality of the suggestions. As they put it over here, the documentation bridges the gap between the intent terminology and the code terminology. All right, so that was a quick look at DocPrompting, which is a twist on natural language prompting for code completions that enhances the prompt by first retrieving documentation. And this is one of the many ways that we've been seeing retrieval come into the loop for LLM generative use cases. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you find coverage like this useful, please like the video, please subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.